Hello, I'm Berl Schwartz from City Pulse here at the Message Maker Studio in Old Town for our first get-together with the Mayor of Lansing in the new year, Andy Schor. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you and your audience.
You came in wearing a city scarf and you got a city jacket on. If things don't work out, you could go into the merchandising business.
Well, I can't. This is, I wear it. I had nothing to do with the rest of it. But, we're showing the pride. The pride of the city of Lansing. Very excited for everything we've been doing and coming up. So that's the whole effort, the branding and everything going on with the city and show the city's pride. I love when I'm driving around and I see random cars with the Lansing sticker.
Oh, you got to paint it on the side of the car.
Yeah, well, they're stickers. They're stickers, and I think they were, for like $1 a piece, you can get a sticker at Old Town General Store and Strange Matter, and we see them all over the place, and I love it.
It does call to mind, though, a question about the fate of Wynken, Blynken and Nod, and the city was fortunate with the Ottawa Power Station, and that's one of the gems of Lansing now. What's the thinking about the fate of that plant?
The Wynken and Blynken and Nod survive.
You think so?
Yes,
the three towers
absolutely.
Will stay up.
I mean, I think it's an integral part of our skyline. It's what people see when they come to Lansing. I also understand that it's like $3 million a piece to take them down. So whoever ends out with that power plant, whatever redevelopment happens with it, I don't know anybody wants to spend $9 million to take down 3 stacks. They're actually in good shape.
Yeah.
They're relatively newer. I didn't know this until recently that I guess they went up in 1981. I thought they were a lot older than that. But they're in good shape. So it's just you cap them. There's no smoke or anything going through it, and they stay. So I think
no real expense to maintain them.
Right? No, you cap it. The expense is taking them down. So I don't think, and I get people who ask me that a lot. Are the smokestacks coming down? And people, I don't think I've had anyone say the smokestacks need to come down because it's an iconic part of the city of Lansing. It's not, this isn't about gross smoke or whatever coming out or pollution. It's just a part of our skyline. I expect those.
I guess a bigger question, though, is what happens to the building.
That is a bigger question, and I think that we've actually already had initial conversations about RFPs and who does repurposing. We met with a company last year that does repurposing of power plants. I would love to see kind of a commercial, maybe residential repurposing. You could put condos. You could put any kind of commercial activity, maybe light industrial. But we have to see who's out there and who wants to redo it. It's not just that building, it's those chiller plants on the water, which are literally on platforms. And not even on land, they're on platforms, but they're really heavy. So those chiller plants are going to come down. They're basically empty. Yeah. So those will come down, so you're going to have these platforms. So you could, in my ideal world, you could go up with, apartments or condos or something right on the Grand River with this plant that could be repurposed into light industrial, commercial, or something with activity. Yeah. We'd love to see all of that. Some of the challenges, are the environmentals. So it's been a plant, so you have to make sure it's environmentally safe, and how you get there, because the only way to get there right now is this small little bridge in Rio Town. So it's something that we're having conversations with the Board of Water and Light about. So if anyone has a proposal or wants to put in a proposal to take that over and redevelop it, I think we'll be open to that pretty soon.
Yeah, as long as we're in that neighborhood. The pool at Morris Park is the future of it is up in the air. What are your hopes and what might get done this year?
Well, my hopes, I would like to have a pool, an outdoor pool for the community. And I think that at the meeting we had and in other conversations, we've heard that having a pool in that area for the community is important. Whether it's that pool or another pool, in Morris Park, I'm not sure. I don't want the pool to come down because it's a historic object, it's a historic item, but it's right now very inefficient. And I think Kyle Kaminsky wrote a good story on this in your paper, talking about we're losing inches of water a day. It's tremendously expensive and inefficient. It's in essence a big bathtub,
right?
In a climate where there's freeze and thaw. So we're looking. Our staff was looking at all the costs. Where is the leaking water going? We're looking at all of that. So we'd like to have some kind of a plan moving forward. Now again, if it's millions of dollars, the city just doesn't have that. We don't have it. We don't have it in our parks millage. So this could be kind of a joint effort of the historic community and other partners to come in and say, we've got some money we use for maintenance that we can use. Is it cheaper and more efficient moving forward to fix the pool, or to just leave it there and use it for other things and then build a new pool? But we're having all of these conversations. I think the big thing that I heard was, we've got Hunter Park Pool on the east side, we've got Hill, which has an indoor pool on the south side. We've got several schools with pools that we'd like to have open so that kids in Lansing can utilize those for swimming lessons or in the summer when it's hot. But there's a lot of folks who would like to see the Moores Park pool or a pool in that area. So we have to figure out what the numbers look like, how to pay for it. And again, where's the leaking going? Can we open it again? Are we leaking chemicals into the Grand River? Mm-hmm. We have to figure a lot of that out, and we're working on it.
An idea that I think arose in the Bernero administration that ties into the possibility of a performing arts center is a band shell in Adado Park. And sources are telling me that idea has gone away.
It's actually, the Arts Council and others in the arts community had proposed that, and we're looking to raise money. So the city, before I was in, the city, I believe, got a grant of some sort, possibly from the federal government, maybe the Institute of the Arts, don't hold me to that, for planning. And there was a plan that was produced with a consultant, and the same way the Performing Arts Center, it's, consultant to the plan. So there is a plan, but I want to say, to do the whole thing was something like $20 million. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a band shell. It's going into Adado Park. It's they call it the Nautilus. It's the big hill. Nautilus? Maybe that's the wrong word. Mm-hmm. It's a big hill. So you in essence have to level the hill, and you have to even it out. And it's not just a band shell. I mean, if you're going to do it, you want to activate the park. You want to do kind of like what we did with Rotary. You want to have tables, and you want to have paths, and you want to have kind of an activated park, along with kind of a big band shell and a kind of a concert space. So you can do concerts and things like that. People can use the space. You've got tables. You've got activity. I don't just want a band shell. I want, an activated park, and that was what the plan had. But again, it was like, I want to say it was $20 million mm-hmm. for the whole thing because of all the earthwork and everything that had to happen. And I know had been conversations about raising that, and I haven't heard that it's dead, but I have not heard updated conversations about where that's coming from.
It's interesting that the number is 20 million because some people who know about fundraising in Lansing, who are interested in the Performing Arts Center, say they can see raising $20 million for the Performing Arts Center. They don't see raising $40 to $60 million for it. Now, I
think there's a difference of opinion on
that. I would share that with me.
Well, I think there's a difference of opinion. I think people anecdotally think this can be raised or this can be raised. This is why we're doing a fundraising study, and we are, we're going to outreach to a lot of people in Lansing, outside of Lansing, throughout the state. Corporates and nonprofits and others to say, are you willing to put in dollars towards a Performing Arts Center? Are you willing to do like Wharton, where people are giving every year because it's not going to raise money. Mm-hmm. It's going to be something that's an asset for the community, but there will be dollars that are needed operational moving forward. Is that possible? So we're instead of just kind of guessing or kind of believing what this person says or what this person says. There's a study going on. I think you're involved in that. But when that study kind of comes back, then there's kind of a go no go. If we have people who are committed to putting in enough to raise $40 million, and we can attach it to another project that has other pieces. So if they're already building the walls for something else, you don't have to build the wall again. So you don't have to go to $60 million. So if we can raise it, then I think we've got the plans, and there are developers who are ready to move forward, including this, and being able to pay it off over 25 or 30 years. But I don't know. I really don't know. If I had to sign on the dotted line today, I wouldn't do it, because I'm not going to commit the city to $40 million if we can't raise it. I want to know that we can raise it, there's things like naming rights and other things that you can offer. If you can offer, you buy the naming rights for the auditorium, you buy the naming rights for the smaller auditorium, for the entire center, for the bathroom. I don't really know, but and we've got a lot of that on the table. You've got people who do, these, I forgot what they're called, but when you die, you will your money towards, something like this, towards an effort like this. So, we're entertaining anything that shows that we can raise that kind of money. Again, the city's willing to put our Lansing Public Media Center there, and with that, we can use public access dollars for infrastructure, so we can put in a little bit, but not 40 million.
But now, a band shall arguably be an easier goal to attain, and would accomplish not the same purpose, but it would be a major step.
It would be a major step. Yeah. I mean, it would only be, theoretically, you're only using it, maybe half to a quarter,
right.
A third to half the year, so it would get used a lot less. Again, it's an outdoor venue that you can use for certain shows and things, but a lot of the big concerts and a lot of the big performances, are indoors. When you have like a Live Nation and others, you can book some acts, like a Common Ground style, some acts, but if you want to be able to book, something every weekend and during the weekdays and things, I think it's a different atmosphere to be inside an acoustically perfect and sound facility. If the Performing Arts Center fails and we have 20 million that we can get committed, and those people want to adjust to a I hate to call it a band shell, to an outdoor performance space with a kind of a park around it, then we can look at that. But we've got the plans for that. So, but at this point, we're still hopeful that we can raise the money for a Performing Arts Center.
So, the Performing Arts Center, is there some kind of deadline in your mind?
Yes and no. If there are a few different kind of projects that are going on now where it could fit, and kind of the deadline is those projects, if we're going to do it as part of those projects. If those things move on without this, then, as of probably March, we'll have the schematics on what we need to build it, which on what it should look like, and then we'll have the the fundraising study on what we can raise, and we have that information if we want to move forward. If there's someone out there, I think March will really know what the financials can look like, and then it's a matter of getting the commitments. If you can get people to sign on the dotted line to say, I'm going to give $1 million from my corporate fund towards this, or I'm going to buy naming rights for $5 million, or I don't know what it is. As soon as we can hit that enough on the dotted line to say, yep, we've got the 40 million, then we match it with a with a project that's going up. And if we can't match it with the project that's going up, we have to find the right space. So I think first you have to have the money, and then you identify the right place. Now again, there are people who want it and have said that if you can raise the money, we'll put it in with our project, but they're going to move forward at some point. And if we can get a decision by the time they move forward, great. And if we can't, we move on to someone else.
Do they move forward regardless?
If they can, sometimes, yeah. I mean, we've got proposals for hotels. We've got proposals for parking decks and housing and restaurants and things. And some people have said, put in a Performing Arts Center, and we'll add it to our schematics. The folks at Lake Trust, we just approved the incentive for them through City Council at the end of last year. Originally, they had pitched, a Performing Arts Center on that space, and at the time, we told them, sure, go ahead if you can raise $40 million, but we can't fund that. And they've moved on to kind of a new proposal with housing units and mixed use, in that Lake Trust building, and then with one outlot building, and then a second phase with another one, and it's not in there. Had 6 months ago, had we said, yeah, we can help you to fund that, then maybe it would have been in there. But at the time, I couldn't sign on the dotted line and commit to it. So they moved on without it.
Turning to a new topic, there's been some discussion. I think new Councilman Brandon Betts has talked about this, and there are others on City Council who indicated support for a tenant rights ordinance for Lansing. It's a little bit surprising there isn't such a thing. What are your thoughts on it?
We have a lot of tenants' rights language in our ordinance. I don't. He has mentioned it publicly, and he has mentioned it to me kind of conceptually. I don't know what he's proposing. We have lots of tenants' rights within our ordinances, so I don't know what he's proposing. I will certainly look at what he's proposing and see what he's thinking, and we can go from there. But we just had this whole issue with a housing complex on the south side where we pink tagged the building. The building wasn't up to code. We told the landlord, you have to get up to code. They didn't, and we pink tagged it. Now, a red tag is when you're shutting it down and saying everyone's got to be evicted. A pink tag is when you go out and you're telling everyone in the building, this building is not up to code. You have rights. Your rights are you can pay your rent into escrow instead of paying the landlord because they don't have your building up to code. You still have to pay because you have a contract, but you can pay into escrow, and you have to talk to an attorney. And we have attorneys at MSU and others on how to do that. We're saying that there are going to be no vacant units that are leased until the building is brought up to code, so the landlord can't put more people into a building that's not up to code. So they do have rights, and we alert them of their rights, and we alert them when the building is not up to code, and we tell them, most often when you do a pink tag, the landlord is working with you. So we pink tag it and say it's not up to code, and you have rights, but we're working with the landlord to get it up to code. It may take 30 days, and if they've gotten significant work done, we give them an extension. But we again, this is all in the pink tag that we put on doors and things. So, tenants do have significant rights. If something if they move in and there's electrical that isn't working, and or if there's no heat, they call us, and we have inspectors go out and inspect, and we cite them. We tell them, we work with them to try and get it all fixed, and if they won't do it, we cite them. So they have significant rights under code to work with the city to make sure that that they're living in properties that are up to code. And again, if it doesn't happen, then we take them to court, and we're exploring ideas of, does the city go in and fix it and then just bill the landlord, depending on, if the boiler goes out and the landlord refuses to fix it, if my option is evict people or fix it and then bill the landlord, we're exploring that, which we can do under the housing law, but then we have to have the money to do it and then try and recapture. So there are significant rights. I believe I think Councilman Betts and others, I think Councilwoman Spitzley has mentioned it, they've talked about kind of doing kind of an ad hoc committee where we can talk about all the different tools we have, and if we can put it into a list, and then if there's something that's missing that they want to review for ordinance, then I'm willing to listen, and I'm willing to take a look at what Councilman Betts has, and if he's got ideas and things that are not in the code now that would make sense, then we'll do it.
The makeup of City Council is changed to some extent, both with the election of Betts, who is more liberal than the woman he succeeded, Jody Washington, on some significant issues such as marijuana. We're talking about tenant rights. And we have a new president who's half the age of last year's president, Carol Wood, who's announced that this will be her last term. It's a changing makeup. How does that change what you might think you can do now?
I wouldn't say it changes a ton. I worked very well with council in my first 2 years. We had lots of conversations with Council President Wood as things were happening. We met with council once a month. We met with leadership whenever there were issues that came up. I announced my positions and what I could support and what I couldn't support, and we had lots of good compromise. We did it on the parking ordinance at the end of the year. We did it in the marijuana ordinance. I was not supportive of any kind of exclusionary zoning or anything like that. So we had some good compromise on marijuana around parks and things. So I worked pretty well with council over the last 2 years, and I'll work well with them now. I've had good conversations with each of them, and I'll continue to have conversations with each of the 8 members, There may be different issues that are on the table, but you still have to get 5 votes. And you still have to get 5 votes and it has to survive a mayor's veto, so realistically you need 6 votes. So I don't think any one person can change the complete dynamic of council, but there could be different or newer issues because you have a new councilman who's bringing his ideas to the table. You have council members who are expressing different issues or new chairs of committees who may want to discuss issues within their committees, and I look forward to working with all of them.
One of the issues that you tried to address and actually got shot down by a coalition of progressive and more conservative members of council was climate.
Yeah.
And we're seeing what's going on in the world. What's happening in Australia is particularly shocking. Your thoughts on what you might try to do in the coming year regarding climate?
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about some of this coming up in end of January and February. We're going to have some stuff before council. I'm going to have my State of the City February 5th. I'll have my State of the City. It's in my mind. It's not. It is. We're hearing it. When we do budget meetings and things like that, we hear it from some members of the public. There are some very passionate members of the public. Councilman Brian Jackson is very passionate about this. Councilwoman Kathy Dunbar. I think there are a few things, and again, I'll talk a little bit about this at the State of the City. But I think there are a few things. One, I think there are a lot of things we're doing that people don't know. I'm on this mayor's listserv, and every time a mayor announces something on climate change, it's publicized and it's big, and I read it and I think, we're already doing that. You had a mayor announce, we're going to move to all LED lighting, and I thought, we're already doing that. We've done half of our city lights are now LED, so that's energy efficiency. You had a mayor announce, lead pipes and things like that. And I was like, we already did that. Yeah. So I think first I want to kind of have the list of things we've done, which is significant. But there's more to do. When we went to council, we talked about an energy efficiency in our buildings. We talked about what we can do at the city, what we can do kind of at the city capital C and the city lowercase c, what we can do around the city. There's a climate action report that we hope to have finalized at the end of January, early February, that my office and council together funded last year. So I want to see what recommendations she brings. It's a young lady or a woman from MSU. We have a company called Johnson Controls, which is doing kind of an energy efficiency audit of the city to see where do we have energy waste? Mm-hmm. What can we do to change that? So it's kind of a combination of what is the city government doing and what can we do throughout the city. And we're going to look at both of those. I know Councilman Jackson wants a kind of a sustainability director, and we're looking at how do we have one person. We're doing a lot of these things, but it's in very different departments. How do you resource that to one person? Right. And how do they track the reports and move forward? What's the low-hanging fruit and what's not? We're looking at different tools for the tree canopy. Do we have more trees? What's in our master plan? We're looking at incentives. When we do incentives and things, do we give more incentive for somebody who has, 0 emissions for buildings and if you put solar panels on your buildings or have EVs for cars. So we're looking at a variety of different options, but I think, I'd like to have that under one person's domain. So we're navigating all that. And again, mm-hmm. I'll talk some of it about that, I think, at the State of the City. When we present our budget at the end of March for next year, we might have something in there. So I'm very sensitive to a lot of the different actions. We're looking at what other cities are doing. There's a whole variety of climate action efforts. Now, we have to remember that we're Lansing. We're not Los Angeles or Tucson, Arizona. I can't put solar panels up everywhere and have 365 days of sunshine where we're generating energy. We have cloud cover half the year. So we have to do what we can based on our climate, on our options. But it's in my mind, and it's something that we're trying to navigate. I gave you a lot there.
Yeah. I was in Washington, D.C. over the holidays, and earlier last year I was in California, and every time I went to buy something, they said, you want a bag? Right. And they charged me for it if I wanted one, but we can't do that here.
We cannot do that here. We are preempted by the state government from charging bags. when I was in the legislature, I think we've talked about this. When I was in the legislature, the leadership passed a bill that basically preempted local government from anything like that. Anything that it was bags, it was local prevailing wage, it was minimum wage, it was a whole variety of what they would say was business activities that should be governed at the state level and not the local level. We actually dubbed it the Death Star bill because it blew up everything. So we cannot mandate bags. We cannot mandate that you can't do bags and you charge. Although I did read in the paper this morning that the new Meijer store in Detroit is not going to have plastic bags. They will only offer their reusable bags. So it looks like the business community might be activating this on their own.
Yeah, I know. In California, I went to a grocery store where when I asked for a bag, they said, there's a wall of empty boxes over there, grab one.
That's a requirement in California. That's a state law in California.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm 90% sure. I don't know if it's city by city or if it's state law.
I wonder if that would be allowed here, if a city could say, you know what?
You can't.
You can't do that.
No.
Yeah.
Again, it's to talk to the legislature, but I voted against it.
Yeah, okay. An issue that I've heard about from someone who was there was, I think in December, a group of downtown business people met with your parking director, Chad Gamble, about the rollout of the new parking, the app and centralized paying for parking. And this one businessman said, literally people came in and, he said, hey, do you need us to pay for your parking? I said, why do we have to pay for parking? The complaint was the business people were not consulted beforehand on how to do this. Do you see any legitimacy to that?
Whenever you have change in a system, you always have tweaks that need to be made. And we certainly listen to the business people. Now, I hear daily people who love the app. Because yesterday I was in a meeting with someone who said, I love it because I have, I go in, I have meetings, and I can fill the time on my app. But yeah, it also depends on the business. We have, I'll give you an example. The ordinance says that you can only park at a meter for up to 2 hours. This is city law. Right. The biggest complaint we're getting is from people who say, the app won't let me add time more than 2 hours. And the answer is yes, because that is the law. It has always been the law. Now, people in the past have gone out and they've filled their meters past the time, and the city used to chalk tires, but then the Supreme Court said you can't do that. The retailers, they love it, right? 2 hours, they don't want state employees, law firms, they don't want people coming and taking those spots all day because they want people rolling through. The law firms and some of the other, non-retail businesses, they want the parking spots so someone can come in from out of town and come for a deposition or whatever and be there all day. So we have disagreement between businesses. Now, I know there are even some of the retailers, they're not used to the new system. The reality is the 2 blocks south of the traffic circle, it's the same system it's always been. We haven't had meters there in 11 years. So the system is the way it's always been. We just introduced an app and have new machines. Anybody, the other issue that we get is right now, and we may change this, it's a 1 hour minimum if you use the app. So we have people who are saying, hey, I just want to go to the peanut store and run in and grab my peanuts and come out, and I don't know why I have to pay a minimum of an hour. The answer is you don't. The machine lets you put quarters in, and you can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Just go to the machine and put your information in and put the quarter in. Now, is it the same as just putting a quarter in a meter and flipping it? No, it's a little different, and we may reduce the hour limit. But there's also supposed to be a surcharge. East Lansing, if you park in East Lansing using the same system, there's a 30 cent surcharge. There's no minimum, but there's a 30-cent surcharge. So maybe we'll go to that. Maybe we'll say we're not going to do the hour minimum, but you're going to have a 30-cent surcharge. Either way, you're paying a little bit more to have the convenience of using an app. But you can go to the machine and you can use it, and you can pay 5 cents if you want. You can pay 15 cents just to go in and get your library book or to go in and get your peanuts. And we have all over the downtown, we have these parking tips where we've put up signs that says, if you want 5-10 minutes, use change in the machine. You're going to be here, an hour. You want to renew, use your app. You can use a credit card in the machine. So we provided new options. Another thing that confused people was that, the meters were still up. We hollowed them out, but the meters were still up. And and I told our parking people we have to get those meters down because
Or cover them at least.
or cover them. Yeah. And we talked about covering them, but when you cover them, it says no parking, and we didn't want that. So we're navigating. Most of them have come down. Now I know around the Capitol building they're still up, and they're going
still up where I live.
and the side streets. Yep, the side streets they're still up also because not all the side streets have the machines. So yes, the side streets around the Capitol, but when you're downtown, they're down.
Yeah.
And the downtown is just the posts, and the posts will come out over the summer because we have to concrete down. So yeah, there's been some transition, and we're navigating it. I think we will navigate some of doing a surcharge instead of a minimum, but we have to go to council with that because now it's a surcharge is not one of the approved fees that we have. So there's a navigation process, and I know that our folks met with and listened. DLI is hearing from businesses, and we're trying to adjust. But I also hear tremendous. I get texts from people almost daily. I love the app. It's great. I was able to just park and register, and I don't care if it was a minimum of an hour. I'll spend the extra 20, 30 cents.
Because it's so convenient.
Just because it's so convenient.
Yeah. Now, when we parked here this morning, there are no meters. There are signs that say 2-hour parking. But how come Old Town is carved out?
It's the
not just on Turner Street, not all of Old
Not right.
Town.
Grand River has meters. Turner does not. You're right. Thank you. Oh my God, I haven't done that in a year. Cesar Chavez. Thank you very much, Berl. Cesar Chavez has meters and Turner doesn't. It's the preference of the businesses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there's a divide. My understanding is there's a divide amongst the businesses. Some would like to see meters, and some very much would not.
Yeah, because often what happens when there are no meters is people working there take spots.
Yep. Yeah, and again, this was our concern downtown as state employees. If it was free, state employees would just park there.
Yeah.
It's a conversation we have. It is what it is now. There are no meters now, and my decision was that we are not going to unilaterally say, boom, meters. We are going to have a conversation with the businesses, and we speak with the Old Town Commercial Association, OTCA, and again, my understanding is there's a divide.
Yeah.
There are some businesses that would like to see meters, and there are some that would not, and we don't have them here now. And if OTCA were to come to me and say, the Commercial Association would like to see meters so that we can roll people through, or there's not enough parking, then we would do it.
The other parking issue is, of course, overnight parking, and so the city now is going to go to a stricter enforcement policy,
Correct.
but with the opportunity to buy a permit if you have a legitimate reason to park on the street. But tell me what went into the decision to go in that direction versus let's just have free overnight parking?
We couldn't get support in City Council. City Council their Public Safety Committee did hearings for a year or two and had lots of conversations with residents. And I read through the minutes of that when Councilwoman Wood sent them to me. And we also did kind of a survey on this. And I mean, the city really is fairly divided. About half would like to see it remain, and half would like to see it go away.
Right.
So, I mean, I think there are people on my staff who have said, why don't we just eliminate the 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. parking prohibition? But again, we worked with council, and council came up with an ordinance, and Councilwoman Wood came to me early on and said, if we pass this, will you enforce it? And I said, if we fund it through permits and through ticket fees, then we'll enforce it with parking enforcement. Enforcing this with police officers, this is like one of the least best uses of a police officer at night, is going and ticketing, people who are illegally parking. They're dealing with many other crimes. This is not a police officer's priority. So yes, I said we will, if we can put permits in and fees. Again, when we did our surveys, I want to say 51% said they would support allowing for overnight parking some way, and I think 42% said they would not. So it was divided with a little bit more on the yes side. So we gave them kind of what they asked for. We said, all right, we're going to allow overnight parking, but we're going to require permits, and you can either get an annual permit as a resident, or you can get a temporary, 70 up to 72-hour permit if you've got people coming in and visiting. Again, the original proposal from council was to make it only, I think, 4 of those per year, and I did not like that because, when I had little kids, if my mother-in-law was coming in from Mount Pleasant because we needed help or she wanted to come in, and I didn't have the ability in my driveway, she needed a place to park. Yeah. So why shouldn't she be able to do that every weekend? So the limits we did were in essence different. They were based on time rather than a hard number of limits, and it was a good compromise. And we'll see how it goes. We're going to start rolling out the permits and charging as of March 1st. I believe you have to have a permit to park on the street, and we'll have an enforcement staff that are going to be enforcing overnight, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. The answer is you'll be the first to know. The question is City Hall.
You'll be the first to know.
Anything new since we talked in November?
We continue to have conversations. We continue to have conversations to see if we can bring the numbers down to make it affordable.
Is there progress?
It's like one step forward, one step backward.
Yeah.
We get people from time to time who come to us with different proposals and different ideas. We continue to have conversations. We have not made the numbers fit yet. But I think there's progress, and as soon as we are able to make the numbers fit, or at least get to a point where we think that we could be close, you'll know.
Have you developed, under your administration, has the city developed its own numbers on what it would take to keep City Hall in City Hall versus what the Bernero administration said? Because someone said to me that they think, a member of City Council said they think the cost, for example, for furniture to keep City Hall is double what the Bernero administration was way higher than is realistic. So have you questioned their numbers?
When we first came in, we looked at, it was 55 million, something like that, 50 to 55 million. Yeah. When we first came in, we did a cursory look at the report, and we have financial people, we have financial analysts, and they did a look at the report and said we generally agree with that. Mm-hmm. We didn't do a new study for what it would cost to stay in City Hall. We have looked at if we were to go to a new City Hall, and I think we've talked about this, a smaller City Hall, and then putting some departments at the South Washington office complex or in parking garages and things. So we looked at what different structures would look like. We have not done a new study on the cost of redoing the current City Hall, but we did look at the existing study, which was a few years old. Yes. It was maybe 4 or 5 years old, maybe more.
Which would argue that it's only only gotten more expensive.
Right. Yeah. I would argue it's only getting worse. We've got an elevator that's been down for weeks, more than weeks, and I would argue it's only going to get more expensive. We had somebody kind of do an eyeball look at the numbers and say, yeah, that's about right. But we have not done a new existing study. I mean, if the furniture is double, if it were the furniture and we could say, we're going to use cheaper furniture, I don't need the gold standard in furniture, is that going to change from 55 million to 35 million? Right. I really hope not. So, I mean, a lot of it is just, you're having to do HVAC, you're having to do elevators, you're having to do a lot of outside work. I do believe that it would be about that, possibly more, because we're further down the road. At some point, maybe we have to cut bait and look and see what it costs. But I still like the hotel idea in that property, and would love to get somewhere else.
Because it's not just about City Hall; it's about a prime location in Lansing. What's the highest and best use of it?
Yes, that's I was going to say economic development, but that's a better way to put it. What's the highest and best use of that property in that spot? And again, can we get out without costing the taxpayers? Mm-hmm. If we can get out and tax increment finance that property, capturing city mills as well as state and every other. If we can capture the 78 mills of taxable value on a new hotel in that property, and we can use that capture over 25 years to fund a new city hall, as soon as those numbers work and we have the location picked out where it would work, you'll be the first to know.
Okay.
You remind me that every time.
Yes. Well, I think we'll turn to some national politics because you had an experience. You've had several connections now with former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. You were in his training program, and he gave some money to the city since you've been mayor.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about his entry in the race?
I'm not hugely surprised. I mean, when I talked to him 8 months ago, and there was about 10 of us, and the question was asked, "Are you going to run for president?" At the time he said, "I'm not inclined to. There's a good field developing," but my understanding is he doesn't feel that the field that's developing is a field that can beat Donald Trump. With the vice president, with Vice President Biden kind of losing some traction, with some of the more liberal candidates getting traction, the Elizabeth Warrens and the Bernie Sanders, he seems to feel that he is a more moderate and more electable option. So it doesn't surprise me that he got in. It's an interesting strategy. It's a strategy that Democrats and Republicans have always talked about. Can you win a primary? Can you win a nomination without participating in the first 4 states? You've got small Iowa, small New Hampshire, sizable, South Carolina and Nevada. But can you, without those votes, you can certainly get enough votes to win the nomination. But without that momentum, can you win a nomination? And
But of course, he's got easily $46 million to spend on television.
That's it. That is the exact difference. I remember the Republicans, Rudy Giuliani, when he was running for president, he made the calculation he would skip the first 4 states.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah,
too.
And by the time Iowa and New Hampshire were done, he was done.
Yeah.
The difference is he's got $40-50 million. He's advertising in Michigan. I've seen the commercials on the bowl games. I saw all the commercials when I was watching bowl games. He's advertising in California and New York. He's advertising in delegate-rich states with pretty good ads. So he's got the money to do it.
And so we're not that far off from the Michigan primary, almost 2 months from today.
Correct.
Of course, we don't know yet, how things are going to shake out, but probably Sanders and Warren and Buttigieg are going to survive. Yeah. And presumably Bloomberg will be on the ballot here. And some mayors have been endorsing Bloomberg, others have endorsed other candidates. You haven't endorsed. What are your thoughts?
I haven't endorsed yet, and I've been contacted by a lot of mayors. Several mayors who were formerly with Kamala Harris have now endorsed Bloomberg. And I think a lot of mayors who have had interaction with Bloomberg, they like the fact that he is a former mayor and that he has, he's got a lot of money, he's very wealthy, but he has, in essence, taken his money, put it into a charity or Bloomberg Philanthropies, and has supported cities and efforts in cities. So there are a lot of mayors that like that and have come on board with him. There are a lot of mayors that like Mayor Pete and like the fact that there's a small Midwestern town mayor who is running for president. But that being said, there's a lot of mayors who like Vice President Biden. He was everywhere as vice president. Mike Duggan is on board with Joe Biden. So I think there's still a spread. There's still a mix. I still very much like Mayor Pete. I like Mike Bloomberg. I think the world of Cory Booker. I was at an event with him recently, and he rocked the house. I mean, his personality is fantastic, and he's very smart. He's former mayor of Newark, New Jersey. He's the only U.S. senator that lives in essence, a low-income area. So these are all very impressive people. I have not gotten there yet. I'd like to see who prioritizes Michigan. And up until now, Michigan is not one of the first 4 states. But as you said, we're going to be voting at the end of January. We will be voting 100% by,
Absentee.
anybody who wants to vote absentee can vote absentee. We will be voting in Michigan before the Iowa caucus. Before the first vote is cast anywhere, we will be voting in Michigan. I think presidential candidates should be here, should be spending money, because when those ballots are out in the end of January, they should be doing some work here. But I don't make their strategy. So I really want to see who kind of.
Well, we are seeing. I know there's a Sanders organizing event in Lansing tomorrow night. I've seen some Warren signs, and I believe she's got an office in Michigan.
She does.
So
she is. Warren has an office, and I've met with her field director. Very impressive. Bloomberg's got an office in Detroit. I think those are the only 2. As far as I know, those are the only 2 with actual staff on the ground.
Yeah.
But again, Sanders has significant support here. Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman Tlaib, is supporting Bernie Sanders. And Rashida's a friend. I've known her. I served with her in the state house. So they all have significant support in Michigan. Mayor Pete has the mayor of Grand Rapids, the mayor of Traverse City, and another mayor who I can't think of supporting him. Elizabeth Warren, I'm pretty sure the mayor of Ann Arbor is supporting her. So there's still support here, but again, for me, I want to see who prioritizes Michigan as one of the most important states in the general election.
Right. So I think of you as moderate with progressive tendencies. Are you concerned about Michigan going for somebody like Sanders, and whether he, because of the socialist label, could lose to Trump?
Yeah, I am concerned. I do have concerns about that. Not just the socialist label. I have concerns. I served in the state house, and I was there as a staffer and a county commissioner. I remember in 2010, after Obamacare passed, there were a lot of people who were very concerned that they were going to lose their insurance. And we had 67 Democrats in the State House of Representatives, biggest majority in forever, and we lost 20 seats. 67 to 47 and went into the minority because there were enough people out there who were really concerned about losing their personal insurance. I've got my PHP, Blue Cross, whatever, and I don't want it taken from me. And while I don't think Medicare for All will necessarily do that, I think it's very easy to make the spin that a Medicare for All is going to take away people's insurance, and I think that is a huge concern to me. When you look at how the campaign is shooting up, now you've got Joe Biden, you got Pete Buttigieg, Michael Bloomberg, who are not going for Medicare for All. They're talking about you keep your private insurance and we get everybody else health care also, which is similar to what we've done in Michigan with Medicaid expansion. So I have concerns about, I hate to say the more liberal agenda, but I have concerns about how many of our independents and moderates will see some of the advertising and spin on some of the plans that are out there. So, but any of those candidates, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, any of them, I believe, they're very good politicians, and they can probably explain the benefit. They're just going to have to be able to do that in Michigan, and they're going to have to do it soon.
Yeah. Finally, we're in the 8th Congressional District, and Lisa Slotkin, has gotten a lot of national media attention because she is on board with impeachment now, which has happened, of course. Do you have concerns about her re-election bid this first time around?
I think what anybody could ask of their congressperson is to do the research, do the homework, evaluate, and do what's right. And I think that's exactly what she did. I am tremendously impressed with our congresswoman and the evaluations that she has done, not just on impeachment, but on everything. On this recent killing of the general in Iran, and she's former CIA. She understands this stuff. But yeah, the Republicans are going to use something against her, right? It doesn't matter what it is. No matter what it is, the Republican candidate would be out there saying she is terrible because blank. It doesn't matter what it is. She doesn't do anything. She this, she that. Now she's passed legislation. Right. She's done quite a bit. There's always going to be something. They weren't going to give her a free pass.
Right.
So yeah, she is one of the top targeted seats in the country, and there's going to be a lot of money spent against her. And she won a very tough election, so she knows how to campaign, and I think she will be able to do that again. I think that there was going to be something no matter what. In this case, she did her homework, and she can very easily say to the voters of the 8th that, I did my homework, and this was the decision I made, whether you agree with me or not. I represented based on my homework. It reminds me of when George W. Bush was running for president, and he said, "You may not like what I'm saying, but I am being definitive about it."
Yeah.
And I think Congresswoman Slotkin is that person. She is going to be saying, I did my homework, and I was definitive about my decision. I was upfront about it. I did town halls to discuss it beforehand and after. And you may not like it, but I'm going to be upfront with you all the time, and hopefully all of the other things that she's done on prescription drugs and healthcare and again, the military stuff that she's bringing back in Homeland Security, that is really important.
And on the horse race side, it doesn't seem like the Republicans yet have a candidate who's got name recognition in our neck of the woods.
Right. Yeah. I don't even know. I couldn't tell you the names of the candidates. Right. So I think that's right. But again, there's going to be millions and millions of dollars coming in from D.C. and all over the country to try and beat Alyssa Slotkin because it's a narrow seat. Yeah. It's a seat that Donald Trump won. It's a seat that Mike Rogers won for many years, and she flipped it. When she beat Congressman Bishop, she flipped it. So of course they're going to come after that seat.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've covered it. Unless there's something new and exciting you'd like to bring.
The only thing
attention.
I'll add is that make sure your viewers know there's a new signature campaign for legislation to add sexual orientation and gender identity and expression into the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act.
Ballot, people will be out there collecting signatures.
Yeah, and it's originally, if they get the signatures, it'll go to the legislature and it'll be an initiated law. Now, if the legislature chooses not to deal with it, it'll go onto the ballot.
Right.
I signed on as an honorary co-chair. I believed it from the beginning that, equality is equality, and sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, that needs to be in the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. We have it here in Lansing. If you are an LGBT community, you are protected in Lansing. Yeah. This should be a statewide thing,
well, maybe the time has come. It's interesting that the coverage of Peter Spadafore rising to be city council president didn't even mention that he's openly gay.
No, because it doesn't matter. He's the right person for the job.
Yeah.
So I think that's right. I think we need the equality. So I signed on. And you know what? It's not just me. There were Republicans. There were Democrats. The business community was involved. You had DTE. You had former Congressman Joe Schwartz, a Republican. You have Republicans, Democrats. This is not a partisan issue, and it shouldn't be a partisan issue. So I was proud to sign on. I wish we didn't have to send someone's rights to the ballot. It should just be done, but I think that's important.
Okay. Well, I think we're done for today.
All right, Berl, thanks.
Mayor Schor, thanks so much. And everyone, thanks for listening from Message Makers Studio in Old Town. And on behalf of City Pulse, I'm Berl Schwartz.